want to talk a little bit about the pitching as well. The Mets, they just signed Juan Soto. It's going to be a monster season for you coming up. This might be the most astronomical season for beat writers as well in New York. You guys are going to have a fun time over there. What else do the Mets need to get them over the hump to win a World Series, not just Juan Soto? What do you think? What's the next step for them to get them over the hump?
I think they need Pete Alonso, Todd. I really do think they need the guy whose nickname you coined. I think they need him back in Flushing because I look at the lineup and it is missing that one big bat that you can put in the middle there, not just to protect Soto. Obviously, that's one reason why you do it, but to give you some depth because this is a Mets team, that was remarkably healthy last year, with the exception of a couple weeks toward the end of the year for Francisco Lindor. I mean, a lot of their guys played in most games. But what happens if someone gets hurt? What happens if someone takes a step back? I think as the lineup is currently constructed with Soto there, it's very good, but you could really use one more piece. The obvious place for the Mets to do that, because their outfield is full, most of their infield is full, is first base. I don't get the sense that they really want to move Mark Vientos from third right now, despite whatever defensive shortcomings might be there. So first place base is it. Like that and DH are the two places you could feasibly upgrade. And guess what? Pete Alonso is by far the best first baseman out there on the market, especially now with Christian Walker going to Houston. You could have certainly talked yourself into a Christian Walker in New York, but that obviously isn't happening. So it's just this weird situation where he's the best fit for the team, Pete Alonso is. Pete Alonso has always talked about how he loves New York, how he would love to be back. It feels like it's got to happen at some point, right? And maybe it takes another few weeks to sort this out and for Pete to explore his market and to come to that same conclusion that all of us have kind of come to, which is that this makes too much sense to not happen. And you kind of have to hope that everyone comes to their senses at some point and Pete Alonso just becomes a Met.
Yeah, Anthony, I think it's making more and more sense because the big factor here is, will he find another team to give him $150+ million? It's hard for a righty first baseman at his age to find that usually. And he is such a perfect fit in New York with the Mets. He has thrived in a city that often can swallow up a player coming from another place and failing to live up to expectations. So for me, I think it has just as much to do with the market. I just don't think there are enough teams that are out there that are looking to spend that kind of dollar on a first baseman like that. I also think many teams with their front office analytics departments really punish players that are of his style and his age and what the curve is. So I think the Mets are going to be fair with their offer, leave something on the table and say, hey, this is the best that you've got. Do you have any kind of outside teams here that you could see as a fit? I thought Houston was one of the teams that would go after someone like Pete. So you take them off the board. I'm having trouble. I mean, Ken Rosenthal was on the show just before and basically ruled out the Yankees for him. So who's giving him 150+ mil?
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned them, Scott, because that's the big one. Because if the Yankees aren't in on Pete Alonso, it suddenly becomes very, very difficult to find a place for him. Maybe a team like the Blue Jays, who have all this money apparently to throw around, but haven't been able to throw it around, would be interested. But they obviously have Vlad Jr. there. It becomes a messy situation. Do they trade Vlad? Do they move Vlad to another position? Do they split first base DH? It's just not as clean a fit as Pete Alonso in New York would be. Heard a lot of people chiming in at the beginning of the offseason saying maybe Washington is a fit. They've got this young core that's starting to, get to the place where maybe they could compete, but they could certainly use another big bat in there. And Pete would make sense on paper. I haven't really heard anything since the offseason has progressed that's a realistic destination. So, yeah, like Seattle could use a bat, but are they really going to spend $125, $135 million on Pete Alonso? You find that hard to believe. So every other destination you can come up with, other than the Yankees, who by all accounts don't really seem to be in on him, every other destination is like, well, it's a fit, but. Whereas in New York, with the Mets, with a fan base that loves him, a player that likes the city, who has been open about that, vocal about that, that's the one market where it's like, no, this is just a fit, period, as opposed to it's a fit, but. And so that's why I think it makes too much sense to not happen.
I feel like it's already written. And so, to me, I want to ask about their biggest move coming. Can they be a team that creates the bullpen that you need to get to the next level? Maybe some were surprised they made the playoffs this year, the way that team's constructed. They hit some of their pitchers, reclamation projects did well, but they didn't have that bullpen that you see that the Dodgers have, that the Phillies had going into the playoffs, and then that folded. Can they build that right now before the season starts?
I don't think they're going to build a bullpen before the season starts that you and I are going to look at it on paper and be like, this is a top flight unit. I think what David Stearns is trying to do is similar to what he's doing in the rotation, is collect guys with upside. And maybe that's one pitch, or again, maybe that's a guy that's had some injury troubles and is finally apparently healthy. But I think the thinking is, if you collect enough of those guys, and I'm talking like a couple dozen, then 3 or 4 of them hit. And maybe 1 or 2 of them hit in a big way, where by the time August rolls around, you're thinking, okay, this is like my 8th inning guy. This is a guy that I really, really trust. And it's really hard to sit here and predict who that's going to be, because I just don't see the Mets going out and signing anyone at the top of the relief market. Very similar to what we're seeing with the starting pitchers, where Max Fried never really a thought for the Mets. Blake Snell never really a thought. It doesn't seem like Corbin Burns is going to be a thought. The relief market's not as deep as the starting pitching market, in my opinion, but even the top guys there, I don't see the Mets as being super interested. And they will probably get a guy or two on a guaranteed major league deal, say, we're signing you, you're going to have a spot in our bullpen no matter what. But I think most of it is going to be the incumbents, the guys who were here last year, whether that's a Dedniel Nunez or a Jose Buto, guys that had some success, and maybe they can string that out over a long season. And then also a high number of these guys they've brought in on minor league deals, on waiver claims, on trades, and they all have their little pieces of upside. Who hits, they'll have 8 of those guys in the bullpen, or they'll have 5 or 6 in the bullpen along with Edwin Diaz and some of the incumbents, and they'll try to build a quote-unquote super bullpen out of that. It probably won't look pretty when we get to spring training, but maybe by August it does. That's David Stearns' plan.
But David Stearns has done this before. I witnessed it. I played it. I saw it. I've watched the Brewers and been a Brewers fan and David Stearns fan for a while. It works in Milwaukee because there's not an expectation. You keep winning in New York, especially now the Mets and Steve Cohen, there's expectation to win. Can that model continue to win with higher expectations? Because what he had was, in those years, he had Devin Williams, he had Josh Hader, and then you pieced it together. So you have the Edwin Diaz. But is the expectation going to be too big for that large stage in New York?
Well, the thinking is, but here's what he has in New York that he didn't have in Milwaukee: a lot of money. And in this situation, that comes through in 2 ways. One is, a lot of these guys that they're signing are guys that maybe they had the choice of 8 or 10 teams that they wanted to go to on a minor league deal. And the Mets are saying, well, we'll kick in an extra $200K. And that sells a lot of guys. Okay, we'll come here and maybe wind up in AAA, but we're going to get a little extra money along the way. And the reason why they're willing to do that in addition to the salary is the other reason the money comes into play, which is the Mets have built this huge resource of pitching staff members and this pitching lab they have down in Port St. Lucie, where they're now developing a reputation that guys say, okay, maybe my career's on the brink a little bit, and that's the reason why I have to sign a minor league deal. But if I go to this team, similar to what the Dodgers have done for a long time, if I go to this team now in New York, they have this pitching lab. They have all these coaches who are world-class at this point. They can help save me. They can help me develop a new pitch or shape a pitch in a different way, or add 2-3 miles an hour of velo. And all of a sudden, I go from a guy who's maybe scraping and clawing to try to get a minor league deal to next offseason, I can get a guaranteed contract somewhere. So that's what they're selling these pitchers on. And I think a lot of pitchers are buying it. And look, it might not work. We don't have this huge sample size of track record that's saying everything David Stearns touches here is going to turn to gold. But I do think that the Mets are internally very confident that they can find enough good pitchers through that method, and they have been very aggressive in recruiting. I think today, with a couple extra minor league agreements for Anthony Ghost and Luis Ortiz, they've brought in 18 pitchers already this offseason, and there's going to be more. So you're probably talking about like 24 pitchers they're going to bring in. It's going to be a super crowded camp, and they're just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and not hoping, but expecting some of it to stick.
And that brings me to my next point there. My question to you would be, talking about young guys, or besides the big names that you got now, who, Vantos kind of came through, he came through last year. We didn't know Beatty and him were over to battle. Who is that guy that's going to be the next dude where it's like, all right, Vantos type, this guy's going to be here to stay and help this team, that's going to click on all cylinders?
Well, Francisco Alvarez is the big one for me. And not that he's not already here to stay, he is, but he has not yet shown that he's like the dude, right? Like, he's been pretty good. He's shown flashes. He's been better defensively than everyone thought. A couple of years ago, he popped 20-plus homers as a rookie, which was really impressive. But he hasn't been consistent. There's been a lot of swing and miss. There's been times where he just looks kind of lost at the plate. But this is the year. Like, he's got 2 full major league seasons now under his belt. He's got plenty of time. He's comfortable as a receiver. This is the year where Francisco Alvarez is going to break out and become that middle of the lineup type force as a catcher, which really is really, really rare around the league. But the Mets have long thought they had it in this guy. I feel like it's now or never. Like, this is put up or shut up time. And look, the version of Francisco Alvarez that's already been here is a pretty good player. Like I said, he's been better defensively than the Mets thought. He was a really good thrower last year, which is something he worked hard to improve. The makeup is plus, so there's always been this expectation that he's going to get 100% of himself out there. But offensively just hasn't shown up yet. I think he is a prime breakout candidate. And if you're the Mets, you're certainly hoping it happens this year, because he's got the age now. He's got the experience. There's nothing standing in his way between him and that breakout.
I'm a big Alvarez fan. I know he faded a little bit with the bat, and there's questions about his blocking, all that stuff. He's got that makeup with the character and everything. Just meeting him one time when we had him on here in the show, I like it. My question for you, though, is about The Captain, your book about David Wright. You wrote that in 2020, am I right?
Yep, that's correct.
So I have to ask, did he tell you how he got called up from AA to AAA, or was this just a big league book?
No, we talked about that time, but I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, Kratz.
Did he tell you the last home run that he hit in AA and who it was off of?
No, I don't remember that one. Really?
I got 0-2 on him. I was pitching to him in the 13th inning, I think, and I threw an 0-2 knuckleball, and he hit an opposite field homer off of me. And it wasn't a walk-off, so I had to stay out there. So forever, me and D. Wright, while we have mutual friends from high school, we're connected that I got him out of AA. His 10th home run in AA or 11th home run, I don't know, but I made sure he left AA and made it to the big leagues soon after that.
0-2, you might want to go outside the zone a little bit there. Expand, make him expand.
No, I should have just gone Garrett Cohen, go 4. I should have gone 4. Put him on.
All right, my last question to you, and this will be the finisher. Right now, I know you're a Mets beat writer, but I know you guys, you're not fandom. You're not fans of, some people aren't fans of the teams they work with. You got the Yankees, you got the Mets. Right now, Subway Series, who's winning if we had to pick one right now?
I think it's the Mets. I really do. And look, kudos to the Yankees for going out and kind of pivoting really quickly from not getting Juan Soto. You can make I wouldn't make the argument that they're better off, but I know people are trying to make that argument that they're better off, diversifying their portfolio and spending that money in other places. But to me, the Mets are on the up and up, and Steve Cohen is very, very committed to this thing. He's going to keep coming until the Mets break through and win one. So I would not bet against the Mets. I live here in Queens. I walk around the sidewalk. I see Mets hats constantly. This idea of like it being a New York Mets town. They're not quite there yet, but a couple more seasons of this, of big spending, of OMG kinds of seasons, that can change very quickly. So it's a very fun time to be a Mets fan. I'm not betting against them really in any context right now.
The rivalry is actually going to kick up a notch because we don't get this where they swipe the player that the Yankees wanted to keep. It gives a little more juice because it was a little stale for a while. So I'm excited about it. Yes, exactly. Anthony, thank you so much for the time. Great to have you on here. Don't be a stranger. Everyone check out his book too, especially with David Wright having a big year coming up, obviously within the organization. What day is his big day? Do you know?
That is July 19th at Citi Field against the Reds. Yeah, retiring number
And
5. It's going to
today.
be a fun one.
And
What's
today's
that?
his birthday.
And today is his
D-Wright's
42nd
birthday
birthday.
today.
Yeah, believe it or
Wow,
not.
look at that. Look at that. Find it wherever you can find books. Anthony, great to have you on. Happy holidays, man. Good to see you.
Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.